My name is Rachel Moore. I'm 24 years old. And today is the day they thought I'd quietly fade into the background. They thought I'd clap for my sister's achievements, smile politely, and pretend like none of it hurt. But they didn't know this was the day I stopped hiding. It was graduation morning. Hundreds of students in caps and gowns flooded Westbridge University's main auditorium, the air buzzing with camera clicks and proud parents waving from the stands. My stomach twisted, not from nerves, but from something deeper. Resentment, pain, and a quiet, burning fire I'd carried for 4 long years. I saw the me parents already seated front and center, saving seats for extended family and beaming with pride. But not for me. No, their smiles were for my sister, Allison. Allison, the star. Allison, the one who deserved it. She arrived in a flurry of gold honor cords and fresh curls, hugged by relatives like she was the guest of honor at her own coronation. She didn't even glance my way. And honestly, I didn't expect her to. What I did expect, what I dreaded, was the way my parents would act. Like I wasn't even part of the celebration. Like my own diploma was an afterthought. Like I was less. 4 years ago, when we both got accepted to Westbridge, I remember the night they sat me down, faces serious, voices rehearsed. "We only have enough money to support one of you through college," Dad said, not even looking at me. And, well, Allison has always shown more promise. You understand, don't you, Rachel? Promise. I had a 4 GPA, ran 2 part-time jobs, and won the state-level business competition 3 years in a row. But Allison was easier to believe in. Her path was neat. Political science. Law school. Safe. Mine? Risky. Entrepreneurial. Uncertain. So they left me to fend for myself, loans, scholarships, overnight shifts at a bookstore, and cheered while Allison sailed through under a golden parachute of privilege. They called it practical. I called it betrayal. And yet, I never told anyone. I wore my struggle like armor-silent, invisible, but heavy. I watched as Allison got new laptops, dorm upgrades, even catered care packages from Mom. Meanwhile, I was budgeting $5 for meals and walking 45 minutes to class in snow boots with holes at the soles. Still, I pushed forward. Because one day, I knew this moment would come. Graduation day. And now, here it was. And something else was about to happen. Something no one in my family, least of all my parents, was prepared for. As the crowd settled and the ceremony began, the university president took the stage. We now invite our student speaker from the School of Business to deliver the graduation address, Ms. Rachel Moore. The murmurs started immediately. All heads turned. I stood up slowly, walking past my stunned parents, past Allison, who blinked like she'd just been slapped by reality. And as I stepped onto that stage, adjusted the microphone, and looked out over the sea of faces, including the ones who had once dismissed me as not worth investing in, I smiled. They didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. Back then, I used to stay up at night, wondering why her, not me. Was I not good enough? Was I not their kind of success? I'd stare at the cracked ceiling of my tiny shared apartment and repeat the same question over and over until one day I stopped asking it. Because I realized it wasn't about me. It was about their limitations. Their inability to see beyond their narrow definition of what was safe. Their refusal to recognize potential in someone who didn't fit the mold. But I never fit the mold, and that became my superpower. They said she deserved it, not me. That sentence had lived rent-free in my head for 4 years. And now, as I looked at the audience, at my classmates, my professors, my mentors, my friends, it finally stopped echoing. Because I no longer believed it. And very soon, neither would they. Do you think she'll let them get away with that forever? Would you? Before the applause. Before the stage. Before the scholarship. There was just a girl. Sitting on the stairs of a 2-story house in a Michigan suburb, wondering why her birthday always felt lonelier than her sister's. I used to think it was just my imagination. That maybe I was being too sensitive. Like when I turned 10 and got a clearance bin sketch pad while Allison, who was 8 at the time, unwrapped a pink bicycle with her name stenciled in glitter. I said nothing. I smiled. I even drew a thank you card in that same sketch pad. But some things leave bruises even when no one touches you. Growing up in the Moore household was like being an extra in someone else's movie. My parents, David and Elaine, weren't cruel. They were methodical, efficient. They liked things that fit cleanly into boxes, report cards, sports schedules, polished family dinners. And in their eyes, Allison fit. She was charismatic, predictable, polished. I was curious, intense, and often too quiet for their taste. Where Allison had tea parties and ballet classes, I spent hours alone with my art supplies, reading about design and inventing small business ideas from cereal boxes. When I showed Dad a handmade jewelry kit I built from bottle caps, he chuckled and said, "Well, I hope you're also good at math. That's what pays bills." When Allison built a shoebox model of the White House for her 6th grade project, the entire family helped. When I painted a landscape that won first place at the county fair, no one even came to see it displayed. "You've always been more independent," Mom would say, as if that was a compliment. But being forced to do everything alone wasn't strength. It was survival. I think the real fracture, the one that split my belief in them, came the year we both applied to Westbridge. Allison had skipped a grade in middle school, so we were only 1 year apart academically. The odds of us both getting into the same top-tier university were slim. But somehow, we both did. I remember the moment so clearly it feels tattooed behind my eyes. It was a rainy Thursday in March. I came home holding the thick acceptance envelope in my hands, soaked but smiling like a fool. I waited for Dad to get off his conference call, for Mom to pause the chicken she was roasting. "I got in," I said, breathless. "Business program. Full acceptance." Dad looked up, nodded once. "That's good, Rachel. That's good." 10 minutes later, Allison burst in waving her own letter. "Westbridge, Poli Sci, I made it." And just like that, the room changed. Champagne corks. Takeout sushi. Grandma got called. Mom cried. No one mentioned my envelope on the table. 2 weeks later came the moment that would seal everything. We were sitting at the dinner table when Dad cleared his throat and said, "We need to talk about college plans." I sat up. This was it. Maybe they were finally going to tell me they were proud. That they had saved for both of us. But then his eyes locked only on Allison. "We've been saving for your education since you were little. We'll cover everything. Tuition, books, dorm." My heart froze. "What about me?" I asked quietly. The silence was louder than his answer. "We had to make practical choices," he said. "Allison's path is clear. Law school, political career. You've always been more unpredictable." Mom added, "You can apply for loans. Or maybe start with community college. You're resourceful, honey. We've always admired that." I stared at my plate, the food suddenly tasteless. "She deserved it. You didn't." That wasn't said aloud that night. But it was said later, in a moment so cold it still echoes. That was the day I stopped expecting fairness. Or love that didn't come with conditions. That weekend, I drove 2 hours in silence to the one place I still felt seen. Grandma Helen's lake house. She opened the door before I even knocked. Somehow, she always knew when I needed her. I collapsed into her arms, trembling. They picked her. Like they always do. But this time, it's everything. She listened. No interruptions. Just warmth. Then she said, "Some people only see straight lines. But you, Rachel, you see what's between them. You see the gaps. That's where your power lies. Don't ever let someone with small vision define what you're capable of." She didn't have money to give. Her pension barely covered her heating bills. But she gave me something infinitely more valuable. Belief. And in that moment, I made a vow. I would go to Westbridge anyway. Without their support. Without their faith. I would walk across that stage not just as a graduate but as proof. I was never the chosen one. But maybe that was exactly why I had to rise. I moved into a tiny, peeling apartment the week before orientation. 3 roommates, 1 bathroom, and floors that creaked like they were telling secrets. The walls were thin. The heater hissed when it worked, and coughed when it didn't. But it was mine, paid for with 3 part-time jobs, scholarships Grandma Helen helped me hunt down, and loans that came with interest rates sharp enough to leave bruises. Allison, meanwhile, moved into a bright, modern dorm. My parents took photos in front of her nameplate, helped her hang fairy lights, and posted on Facebook with the caption, "So proud of our future world leader." There was no post about me. No mention that I had even started college. Still, I unpacked my secondhand books, printed my syllabus, and went to class. At 5 a.m., I opened the local coffee shop. I scrubbed sticky counters, learned how to work the industrial espresso machine, and smiled through the morning rush of sleepy professors. After class, I ran to my second job at a used bookstore off campus, shelving donated books and tutoring high school students in algebra. At night, I studied with eyes half shut, sometimes drifting off on top of my accounting textbooks. Sleep? Optional. Quitting? Not even on the table. During that first semester, I realized something shocking. I was actually good at this. Budgeting my week down to the hour. Analyzing supply chains in class, while mentally optimizing coffee inventory at work. I wasn't just surviving, I was applying every business concept in real time. While my classmates were still arguing over case studies, I was living them. One day, my business ethics professor, Dr. Carter, stopped me after class. "Ms. Moore, your perspective on lean startups was unusually sharp. Are you working while in school?" I nodded, embarrassed. He paused, then smiled. "Don't be. That kind of clarity only comes from real pressure. Don't lose that edge." It was the first time someone in academia treated my struggle as an asset, not a disadvantage. Second semester brought my first real break. I met Zoe. She was one of my roommates, the one who played violin at 2 a.m. and always made too much soup. "You look like death," she said one night, pushing a bowl toward me. I had 5 hours of class and a 6-hour shift. That's not sustainable. Neither is student debt. She didn't argue. She just started leaving labeled Tupperware in the fridge. "Eat this, and you better not skip protein again." Zoe became my unofficial college family. She edited my papers, timed my power naps, and once even sat in on my econ lecture just so she could quiz me before midterms. One night, I found her scrolling through internship listings for me. "You can't keep working dead-end jobs forever," she said. "You're building something. But you need space to grow." She was right. And 2 weeks later, I found it. A flyer posted in the business building caught my eye. Student research assistant wanted. Focus on entrepreneurship in underserved communities. Flexible hours. Paid. And under the mentorship of Dr. Carter. I applied that night. 2 interviews later, I was hired. The job changed everything. Instead of wiping tables, I was now helping Dr. Carter conduct real studies, interviewing local small business owners, analyzing resilience strategies, and even co-writing reports. He saw something in me that no one else ever had. Not even my parents. "You think like an operator," he told me once. "You see patterns. Scarcity hasn't broken you, it's sharpened your instincts." I started to believe him. Inspired by our research, I launched a simple website offering virtual assistant services to small businesses. It wasn't flashy. But I knew how to answer emails, create invoices, manage calendars, and write clean copy, skills most mom-and-pop shops needed but couldn't afford to hire for. I worked late nights from a shared laptop, offering services to local bakeries, home contractors, and solo law offices. By the start of my junior year, I had 6 paying clients. Enough to quit the bookstore. I still worked 40 hours a week. Still had blisters from stress and anxiety. But I was no longer just surviving. I was building. Meanwhile, Allison's life was beginning to wobble. She called once just on sea during a particularly bad week. "I don't get it," she whispered. "I follow the syllabus, I take notes, and I'm still bombing my thesis. What am I doing wrong?" I wanted to feel smug. I wanted to say, Welcome to my world. But I didn't. Instead, I emailed her research articles, walked her through citation software, and reminded her to back up her files. Maybe it wasn't generosity. Maybe it was closure. By senior year, everything had changed. My business was generating steady revenue. I'd hired 2 students as part-time contractors. My name was on a published research paper. And my GPA? Still a perfect 4. Even the business school dean had noticed. One afternoon, she asked to meet. "I've recommended you for a national entrepreneurship competition," she said. "Your journey. It's exactly what we want our students to embody." I blinked, stunned. She smiled. "Resilience. Innovation. Grit. You're more than a student now. You're a story worth telling." And yet through all of it, my parents never once called to ask how I was doing. No questions. No visits. Not even a single, "We're proud of you." They were too busy planning Allison's graduation dinner. They thought I was just getting by. What they didn't know, I was already flying. The week before graduation, I got a text from Mom. "We've rented a house near campus for the weekend. Mostly family, some friends. Come by if you're free." Not, "We'd love to celebrate you." Not, "We're proud of what you've accomplished." Just, "If you're free." I stared at the message for a full minute, then locked my phone. I wasn't angry anymore, not really. I was past that. What I felt now was something colder, cleaner. Detachment. The night before graduation, Allison posted a photo of the family dinner. Long table. Fancy place settings. Toasts being made. Everyone in coordinating outfits. I hadn't been invited. Zoe saw the post and grimaced. "Seriously? They didn't even mention it to you?" I shrugged. "It's fine. They didn't think I'd have time." She looked at me for a beat. "They're going to regret that tomorrow." Graduation day came bright and early. The sky was clear, the air buzzing with excited chatter. Families hugged, snapped photos, compared chords. I arrived with Grandma Helen, who insisted on pinning my special graduation stole herself. It was embroidered with the words she'd always told me when things got hard. "Diamonds are made under pressure." As I adjusted my cap, my phone lit up with a message from Allison. "So proud of you. Let's walk this stage like the women we've become." And for the first time in years, I smiled at her name. Inside the university auditorium, seats filled quickly. The Moore family was seated in the VIP section center front. I saw Mom, Dad, aunts, uncles, even cousins I hadn't heard from in years. All of them laughing and chatting, pointing toward Allison as she waved. Not a single glance in my direction. Until the name was called. And now, we invite our student speaker from the School of Business, Rachel Moore. The shift in the room was immediate. Heads turned. My father blinked, then sat upright. Mom froze mid-conversation. Allison's jaw dropped as she turned in her seat. And I walked. Steady. Focused. Every step across that stage felt like another brick laid in the foundation I'd built alone. I reached the podium and looked out over the sea of faces, some proud, some shocked, some trying very hard to act like they weren't being blindsided. Then I began. 4 years ago, I arrived on this campus with no safety net, no savings, no support. Just a backpack, 3 part-time jobs, and a belief that maybe, just maybe, I could make something of myself without permission. I spoke not just about business or academics, but about resilience. About finding worth in yourself when others refuse to see it. About rising, even when no one claps for you. And though I never said their names, my parents sat frozen in their seats. They knew. Oh, they knew. When I stepped away from the podium, the applause was thunderous. But it wasn't over yet. President Dawson returned to the microphone, smiling. "Before we conclude, we have several special recognitions." He paused for effect, then continued. "This year, our valedictorian from the School of Business is Rachel Moore, graduating with a 4 GPA while simultaneously founding a company now valued in the 6-figure range." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. My father's expression? Somewhere between stunned and exposed. Ms. Moore is also the winner of this year's National Business Innovation Competition, bringing national recognition to our university's entrepreneurship program. And what many may not know, the president added, voice rising, is that Rachel achieved all of this while fully self-financing her education, working over 30 hours a week, without family financial support. A long silence. Then applause again, but this time, not polite. Explosive. The room was on its feet. I dared a glance at my parents. Mom looked pale. Dad stared straight ahead, lips tight. Their extended family, who'd only moments ago been gushing about Allison, now exchanged confused glances. Grandma Helen? Beaming like the sun. After the ceremony, there was chaos. Families gathering for hugs and photos. Students crying, laughing, taking selfies. I moved through the crowd slowly, feeling strangely free. Until I heard my name. Rachel. It was my father. He stood with my mother, both still visibly shaken. We didn't know you were involved in so much, he said, trying to sound casual. You've been holding out on us, Mom added with a brittle smile. I looked at them, the two people who once told me, she deserves it, you don't. No. I said softly. I've been exactly who I've always been. You just weren't looking. Before they could answer, Allison walked up, tears in her eyes. You were amazing, she whispered. I had no idea how much you were carrying. She turned to our parents. How could you not know? She asked them directly. How could you not ask? My mother blinked, stunned by the confrontation. But Allison wasn't done. She looked around at the other guests, our aunts, uncles, family friends. Everyone's been talking about Rachel like she's some kind of miracle. But you too. You acted like she was invisible. Aunt Marcy gasped. Uncle Greg folded his arms. Even Grandma Helen stepped forward and said, I told you. I told you years ago. My dad tried to recover. We made choices, financial ones. It wasn't personal. No, I said. It was practical, right? You invested in who you thought would yield returns. Well, here I am. Return on investment, infinite. Before the tension could thicken further, I turned away. Zoe appeared just in time. Come on, superstar, she said. You've got a post-grad party to get to. With your people. I looked back at my parents, then at Allison. Coming? I asked her. She nodded, slipping her arm into mine. And together, we walked away. The party at the business school that evening was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Crystal punch bowls. Tiny hors d'oeuvres on silver trays. Professors and deans clinking glasses in celebration. It wasn't just a graduation gathering, it was a recognition of everything I had built in silence. Zoe introduced me to her parents, beaming with pride. Grandma Helen was the star of every conversation, accepting hugs and handshakes like she was royalty. And Allison, she never left my side. At one point, she whispered, It's weird. Everyone knows you. I thought I was the one people looked up to. I smiled gently. We both had different spotlights. Mine just happened to be harder to see. She nodded. I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner. Later that night, as the last speech ended and the lights dimmed, I stepped outside for air. The campus was quiet now. Calm. Just the rustle of leaves and the hum of a night well lived. That's when I saw them, me parents. Standing at the edge of the courtyard, away from the crowd. We locked eyes. It was time. They approached slowly, as if uncertain whether they were still allowed in my world. My mother spoke first. Rachel, we've been thinking about everything. The past. The choices we made. Dad added, we didn't realize how far you'd come. Or how much we'd missed. I looked at them. Both so familiar and yet suddenly so small. Not because they were weak, but because I had grown. Past the need for their permission. Past the hunger for their praise. It wasn't just about missing it, I said calmly. You dismissed it. You made a decision early on that I wasn't worth betting on. Mom flinched. We thought we were doing what was best, what was practical. And yet, I said, That practicality cost me more than you'll ever understand. Silence stretched between us. Then my father asked, "Is there any way we can rebuild?" I took a deep breath. If you want to be part of my life again, really part of it, starts with this. You don't get to rewrite the past. You don't get to pretend you were cheering me on. I don't need a parade. I just need honesty. Accountability. My mother's eyes filled. She reached for my hand. You're right. We failed you. Not just financially. Emotionally. As parents. That honest to flawed, late, but real meant more than I expected it to. But I wasn't done. From now on, I continued. If we're going to be a family again, here's what that looks like. Respect. No more treating my path like a footnote to Allison's. No more silence when I speak. No more shrinking me down to fit your comfort zone. Dad nodded, slowly. We understand. Good, I said. Because this isn't about guilt. It's about rebuilding with truth. The next day, I moved into my new apartment, a sunlit space 5 blocks from the consulting firm that had offered me a 90,000 starting salary. My team from the digital agency helped me furnish it, most of them still fellow students I had hired and mentored. I hung Grandma Helen's embroidered stole in a shadow box on the wall, a symbol of where it all began. A week later, I received a package from my mom. Inside was a letter, handwritten, pages long. She wrote about her fears, her upbringing, the pressure to choose safe options, and how she saw now that safe didn't always mean right. At the bottom was a line that stayed with me. You didn't follow the path we laid out. You made your own. And that's far braver than we ever realized. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer I only opened for things worth keeping. As for Allison, she changed, too. She started volunteering at a nonprofit that helped first-gen students navigate college admissions. I can't undo how we were raised, she told me one day, but I can help make it easier for someone else. And just like that, we were no longer rivals. We were sisters. A month after graduation, I sat on the porch of Grandma Helen's lake house, sipping iced tea as she handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a bracelet. Simple silver, etched with worn initials. It was my mother's, she said. She gave it to me when I graduated. Told me it belonged to the woman in the family who had to fight the hardest. I fastened it on my wrist, my throat tight. She smiled. Told you diamonds were made under pressure. That fall, I launched the First Light Scholarship, a fund for students who, like me, were building futures without blueprints. No legacy. No inheritance. Just grit. My first recipient was a girl from Detroit who worked 2 jobs and still tutored her younger brothers after school. When I handed her the award, she cried. And I understood exactly why. Weeks later, I got lunch with my parents. They didn't ask for credit, they didn't try to make speeches. They listened. And maybe, finally, they saw me. I don't know what forgiveness looks like long-term. Maybe it's not a finish line, maybe it's a choice you make again and again, every time the hurt tries to rise again. But I do know this. Their approval no longer defines me. Their love is welcome but not required. I built this life brick by brick, through rain, through silence, through being told I wasn't the one. Turns out, I always was. They just couldn't see it. But I can. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? What did you do to rise above it? Share your story in the comments. And if this one resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of turning pain into power.